It's Monday, the 27th of April. My name's Juan Brown. You're watching the Blancolirio channel, and by popular demand and brought to you by the patrons that sponsor this channel over on Patreon, we'll be discussing the recent PC-12 crash near Mesquite, Texas. On Thursday, the 23rd of April, Boutique Air, that's the name of the company, PC-12 departed Dallas-Fort Worth Airport on a repositioning or ferry flight with just the pilot on board. And following a loss of engine power, the aircraft attempted to force land to an open field near Mesquite, Texas. The aircraft stalled and crashed. The aircraft was damaged beyond repair when both wings were torn off and post-crash fire erupted. The sole occupant was hospitalized, the pilot. So we got a lot of good data and information on this crash already, so let's go inside the studio and go over it. And remember that we're here to learn, we're not here to castigate or find blame. We're also here to find out what NTSB investigators will be looking for in their post-crash accident investigation. Boutique Air is a small charter and EAS, Essential Air Service. The company's based out of San Francisco. They have a small fleet of 34 aircraft, King Airs, and these Pilatus PC-12 aircraft, the single-engine turboprop aircraft. This one was a PC-12/47 model of Pilatus. And this company serves 29 destinations. By the way, looking at their website, it looks like they are hiring for captain's positions at a rate of $60,000 to $70,000 per year. So let's go inside and see what we can find out and learn from this. Welcome back to Studio 2B, B for Blancolirio. Let's start off with explanation of what EAS, Essential Air Services, means, and show you on the map here where Boutique Air flies to. 34 aircraft flying to 29 destinations, and what the Essential Air Services does is it's a government program that provides air service to underserved markets. Like here in California, they've got the market Merced to Sacramento and or Los Angeles, or Sholo, Arizona to Phoenix. And here in Texas, several flights in and out of Dallas, Fort Worth, Greenville, Victoria, Clovis, Carlsbad, New Mexico. So let's work this backwards. We'll start with the newscopter footage of the post-crash fire. Then we've got some actual video of the stall itself, which led to the crash. And then we'll go to Victor at VASAviation, has once again done a great job. If you haven't already, subscribe to Victor's channel, VASAviation, of putting together the ATC audio along with the radar overlay of the entire flight pattern. So here's the NBC5 out of Dallas helicopter footage of the post-crash fire. And note how the wings have separated from the fuselage of the aircraft and safely burning away from the aircraft. But that's a very short run from impact to where it finally stopped. So very, very hard smash down, not landing, but, well, you'll see in the next video how this took place here. Nice and level terrain, and they were able to get the pilot out of there and get him off to the hospital. Impact in the upper right corner of the screen there. So NTSB investigators should easily be able to determine the status of the engine and the fuel control unit. Also on board the Pilatus is a SD card that records engine parameters, and if the engine's malfunctioning, they should have good data regarding the performance of the engine and what was going wrong with it, what were some of the indications that the pilot was seeing. Here's some actual footage shot by Steve Naber's left base entry to runway 18 with a tailwind. out of 5-knot tailwind. And right there, he's stalling the aircraft. And the stick pusher is saving his life. More on that later. Now let's go over to VASAviation and see what Victor's put together with his ATC audio and radar overlay.
Boutique 902, climb and maintain 8,000.
I maintain 8,000, 902.
So he's climbing to,
what did he say,
8,000?
Boutique
Yeah,
902,
8,000.
climb and maintain 8,000.
Boutique right here. So he's
I maintain 8,000, 902.
departed Dallas.
142, turn right headed 150.
Rate 150, Southwest 142.
Thrust 282, resume your navigation, right base, runway 33.
Right base for runway 33, 282.
Thrust 202, resume your navigation, right base, runway 33.
Right base 33, test 200. Regional approach, thrust 252.
Thrust 252, approach, go ahead.
You'll hear him.
Thrust 252, 5 miles north of Rockwell, inbound Addison with information Zulu.
Thrust 252, squawk 4654.
4654 squawk, thrust 252.
You'll hear
Thrust 252,
in a
radar
second.
contact, 4 miles north of Rockwell Airport, sit type aircraft.
Fort Cruiser 252.
Small airplane.
Thrust 282, contact Addison Tower 126.0.
Contact Addison Tower 160,
I'm losing my engine.
Losing my
Okay, there
engine.
was somebody else there. Thrust 282, Addison Tower 126.0. Thrust
So that was
202,
Boutique's first
also
call.
Contact Addison Tower 126.0.
126.0, thrust 200.
Other aircraft calling, go ahead.
Yeah, this is 902. I'm losing power on my engine.
Boutique 902, roger, say intention.
I'm going to go to Rockwell.
Boutique 902, roger, descend and maintain your discretion for the Rockwell Airport, 12 o'clock and 3 miles. Recommend you turn southbound for traffic north of the airport.
Turning south 902.
Boutique
So-
902, traffic in the turn will be 1 to 2 o'clock and 2 miles, maneuvering indicates 2,100. Additional traffic 11 o'clock, 5 miles westbound, 2,500 indicated.
All right, roger that. Let me get a vector, please.
Boutique 902, flight heading of 150.
A quick point on that. It's good to ask for a vector and just get head in the right direction. You also, on your Garmin software, can hit nearest airport, and that'll take you straight to your nearest airport as well.
Contour heading of 150. All right, just to let you know what's going on. I've lost the NG. I've gone down from 92% or so, and I'm down to 85%.
So we'll break that down in a minute here. NG is basically the same or similar to N1 and an airliner type aircraft. It's the number one power gauge. I assume it's the number one power gauge. You Pilatus guys can help me out here. That indicates what your power output is of the engine.
Definite audible tone change in the engine. I have PAPs on and I have the ignition on, and that's not helping at all. Right now,
I assume that means, again, Pilatus guys, help me out here, that he has engine continuous ignition on and props de-ice on, is what I'm assuming he's saying right there.
we're stable at 86 on the NG, and I'm in flight idle. Everything seems to be good right now, and I'm going to go on a heading of 150, descending down to 6,000.
Boutique 902, roger, your altitude indicates 5,700. Are you able to maintain altitude?
Roger that. I'll stay at 5,000, so I'm going to descend down to 5,000.
Southwest 140.
See, he's already descended below the altitude. He's already getting a little bit behind the aircraft there in his talking and flying and troubleshooting all at the same time. Single pilot operation. He's an extremely busy individual right now. The 86% NG at flight idle, that doesn't sound like a good power setting situation to me. Again, you Pilatus guys, help me out with this. And we'll talk about the manual override lever or position control on the PC-12 aircraft. I don't know if he's working with that at this point or if he's deciding he's got enough power as it is to continue without messing with the override switch or lever.
32, turn right heading 200, maintain 2,500.
Rate 200, 2,500, Southwest 142.
Boutique 902, do you want to stay in that area and troubleshoot the problem, or what would you like to do?
Right now, I seem to be stable. How far am I from DFW?
So he's thinking he wants to get back to DFW where he can work on the airplane again, thinking about saving the aircraft, land as soon as practical versus land as soon as possible. So he's making a bet here.
Boutique 902, you're about 30 miles east of DFW report.
All right, let me turn around and go back to DFW direct.
Boutique 902.
Okay, so he's making that decision to head on back over to Dallas and leave a perfectly good runway that's virtually underneath him with an engine that's giving him troubles. And once one of these fuel control units starts messing up on you, they usually don't get any better.
Just clear to DFW Airport via radar vectors. Turn right heading 250. Stand by for the runway.
250, heading right turn. 902.
So he's here. Here's Rockwall. What's that called? Rockwall Airport. Dallas is over here, and Mesquite's down here. So he's about to get himself in a pickle between these two airports. And what's he down to, around 5,000 feet or so?
Southwest 142, the field 3 o'clock and 10 miles.
Aero country. Southbound like the VFR 5 calling Dallas executive. Field trip side, Southwest 142.
Southwest 142, field 3 o'clock and 100 miles.
Inside.
Southwest 142, clear visual approach runway 31 left, heading tower 123.7.
Visual 31 left over tower, take care, Southwest 142.
Regional approach, Wind System 958, Mike Delta just off Addison, climbing to 1,500.
November 958, Mike Delta, regional departure, radar contact, climb and maintain 3,000.
3,008, Mike Delta.
Boutique 902, turn right heading 260, expect runway 31 right. The altimeter at DFW is 2976, and the wind is 320 at 9 gust 14.
So good winds out of the north, typical Dallas type wind and weather.
On the controls,
good weather.
It looks like I'm losing this engine. Let's get back to what was that, Rockwall?
Boutique 902, the Mesquite Airport's 11 o'clock in about 3 miles. Recommend you go there. There's traffic east of the field moving eastbound indicates 2,000. If able, fly heading 220.
All right, coming to 220.
So he mentioned something about control. It was lost in the garbled of the radio frequencies there. I don't know, again, if he's messing with the manual override or he's basically losing the engine at this point. Besides, you don't have a whole lot of time messing with the manual override if you're down to 5,000 feet. We'll go take a look at it in the manual. It's a little bit of a procedure, and it's probably not practiced very much. You don't want to practice this procedure in the actual airplane because you can damage the engine. We'll talk about more about this in a minute. And how much, you guys over there at Flight Safety, how often do you guys brief manual override procedures in the simulator? I'd like to find out in the comment section below.
Looks like I have a runway at my 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Boutique 902, affirmative, that is Mesquite Airport. Runway 18 and runway 36 are available.
Okay, so again, I don't have an altitude readout right here, but the winds are out of the north, and he's headed towards a good airport. But instead of setting up for a downwind landing to the north, he sees a runway in front of him, and he's going to make a bid for it. But then he's going to make an ill-fated decision for that left 360 and make the turn away from a good runway. Optimally, you want to get over an airport and then do your descent over the airport and never turn away from a good landing spot.
Boutique 902, the field 10 o'clock and 2 miles. Did you want to take a visual approach out there?
Roger that. I'm going to do a 360. I'm going to a left base for Mesquite.
Boutique 902, roger.
By the way, the Pilatus clean does glide pretty well, especially with just one person on board. Don't know what his fuel is. He was going all the way to over to Muscle Shoals. Not a terribly long flight, but they do glide pretty well.
Boutique 902, did you want runway 36 or runway 18 there?
Runway 36.
Boutique 902, clear visual approach runway 36.
Left the regular runway 36.
So he's going to land
Boutique 902, contact Mesquite Tower 120.3.
120.3.
He says he's going to take runway 36, but he takes runway 18.
Boutique 902, Mesquite Tower, I understand you're setting up for runway 18, is that correct?
That's affirmative. I think I'm in the left base for it right now. Gear coming down.
Boutique 902.
So he's turning away from the good runway. He's going to go for runway 18, which is going to put him in a tailwind landing, and he's dropping the gear way out here while he's turned away from the good runway.
Roger.
Lowering the gear, more aerodynamic drag.
You're going to land with the tailwind, the wind 010 at 5, runway 18, clear to land.
Not bad, 5 knot
Clear to land.
tailwind.
Do you have me in sight, sir?
Now, what difference is that going to make? I'm not sure what he's getting at there. What's more important is he have the runway in sight.
Boutique 902, looking not quite yet. You're northeast of us about 3 miles. Oh, correction, I've got you in sight now. You're clear to land runway 18.
Clear to land runway 18. 902.
So left base, too low and too slow, and looking from the Facebook video, he's stalling right about in here, and the left wing drops and hits the ground hard. Very, very lucky. Very tough aircraft. Good design, Pilatus. Now let's go back and review that Facebook video from Van Greg. So he's just trying to milk the last little bit of altitude out of this in an effort to reach the runway. He's dealing with a little bit of what appears to be an overshooting tailwind. And right there exceeding the critical angle of attack. Stick pusher kicking in, wobbling a little bit. Down she goes. Here's the Pilatus PC-12 POH Pilot Operating Handbook. Let's check out a couple things in here. And here in the Emergency Procedures Section 3.1, beginning of almost any manual, aircraft manual, know your aircraft and be thoroughly familiar with important emergency procedures. The emergency procedures use the terms land as soon as possible and land as soon as practical. For the purposes of these procedures, the meanings are as follows. Land as soon as possible, land without delay at the nearest airport where a safe approach and landing is reasonably assured. Versus land as soon as practical, landing, airport, and duration of flight are at the discretion of the pilot. Extended flight beyond the nearest suitable airport is not recommended. Emergency procedures alone cannot protect against all situations. Good airmanship must be used in conjunction with the emergency procedures to manage the emergency. So this is typical in all pilot operating handbooks. Now let's take a scroll through here. Emergency procedures, rejected takeoff, engine failure before and after rotation, right on takeoff, engine failure after rotation, gear up, engine failure in flight, partial power loss. Indications, uncommanded engine power reduction, no response to PCL, that's your power control lever movement, your throttle basically, and it has you go to idle. Manual override lever, here's the manual override lever comes into play, pull upward and move slowly forward until engine responds, wait and let engine stabilize. If engine compressor stalls and or ITT, inlet turbine temperature is exceeded, manual override lever retard and move very slowly forward. If engine falls below 50% NG, starter switch, push for 2 seconds. So if you don't think you're busy during one of these kind of situations, single pilot, you certainly are. And then there's the caution. When the starter switch is pushed on, aircraft with a single battery installed, the autopilot may disengage and the AHRS and EFIS may go offline. So now you're hand flying the aircraft. Manual override lever, move forward to required power, NG greater than 80%. Land as soon as practical. Now, that's odd that this says land as soon as practical instead of land as soon as possible in the Pilatus manual. So I'd like to hear from you Pilatus guys what you think about that. Caution, when the manual override is in operation, do not permit the NG to fall below 65% and observe engine limitations. When you're in manual override, you lose all your engine protections for over temperature, over speed. You're manually controlling the engine. You're bypassing the pneumatic control, which provides the limitations automatically to the engine when you're operating in manual with the manual control lever or manual override lever. In descent and until touchdown, maintain at least 75% NG. Warning, depending on airfield conditions and aircraft weight and performance, the available power may not be sufficient to ensure a go-around. Touchdown, condition lever, cutoff feather. Do not move the PCL after the idle detent. I think that you might smoke the engine in doing that. Do not use the manual override on the ground for taxiing. So this is why guys don't don't practice the manual override procedures in the actual airplane, those that do their training in the actual airplane, because you risk over $100,000 worth of damage to the engine quite easily with a misapplication of the manual override lever. Okay, engine failure in flight, total power loss. You're going to land. And there's another one in here regarding NG, which is what he's referring to. Now, why this pilot is explaining all this to ATC, I don't know. Is he actually flying his airplane, or is he looking for help from somebody? The folks at ATC don't know the difference between an NG versus an NG series model of aircraft versus the NG gauge on your aircraft. So I'm not sure what all that was all about, unless he was looking for another Pilatus guy out there to possibly throw him a clue. Just declare the emergency and fly the aircraft. Oil, prop, torque, ITT, engine NG 3.6-11. Indication, EIS caution, that's your emergency indicator system, and NG digits double blinking at 40 per minute or 80 per minute. NG, that's the NG. That's your main power gauge on your engine instrument panel. Check NG percent indication. If NG is above 104%, do this procedure. If NG is below 60%, which he claimed was not the case. He said he had his NG dropped, but it was, what did he say it was? It was above 60%. PCL, increase power, aircraft speed, increase. If engine does not appear to respond to PCL inputs, aircraft carry out the engine failure in-flight partial power loss procedure in 3.4.4, which we just talked about. So did this pilot have time to get into the manual override, the use of the manual override lever or not in this situation? Or did he just figure, I'll get back to Dallas and land? Okay, here we are now moving on to section 7-10, the description, aircraft and systems description. We talk about the manual override lever. And here's where it explains how the manual override lever is there to take over control of the engine in the event that the regular pneumatic control, the automatic control, which provides you protections from over temperature and over speeds, fails, or you have some kind of a linkage problem with the power control lever itself. You can use this manual override lever. And it's a complicated little system. Turboprop aircraft generally do tend to be complicated little systems. Works great until they don't. Here's the picture of the throttle quadrant in the PC-12. The big lever in the middle here is your power control lever, your basic throttle, your condition lever, which gets you from idle cutoff, ground idle, flight idle. And then over here is a red knob, the manual override lever, small lever over here to the left. And then to the far right here are your flaps. Section 7-11 here talks about the engine systems, engine condition monitoring system, the ECMS. That's where engine parameters are recorded when they're exceeded. They're recorded onto a little SD card like this, and investigators should be able to get any exceedances captured by this system. Now here in section 7-25, it talks about the stall warning stick pusher system, which saved this pilot's life. Even though it was still a hard landing and he did effectively stall it in. The Pilatus has a rather nasty stall characteristic, which I'll show you here in a demonstration, and is required for its certification to have this stick pusher system and stall warning system. This stall warning and stick pusher system has to be tested prior to every departure. It has to be operational for every flight. And unlike the initial iteration of the 737 MAX, Boeing, and regulators, this system says right here, it uses both AOAs and 2 independent computers that have to agree before this system is activated. Right here, the 2 computers are connected in such a way that either computer can independently provide stall warning, stick shaker and stall warning, but both computers are required to actuate the stick pusher. So as the Pilatus achieves a critical angle of attack, the stick shaker begins shaking the stick, reminding the pilot that he's close to a stall, as well as an indication, I'm sure, up on the panel. And if he continues to get deeper, closer to a stall, exceed the critical angle of attack, the stick pusher will take over and will shove the stick forward with a force of about 60 pounds, forcing you to lower the nose of the aircraft. And you can see that in the final moments of this flight here, as the aircraft does a bit of a porpoising action until it hits the ground. Otherwise, the stall characteristics of a Pilatus are very abrupt. I'll show you here. This is a clip from the PC-12 stall series. Stalls done by the factory. This is with the stick pusher and stick shaker off, and it just snaps and rolls right over, usually to the left. You'll see in this next series, very high angles of attack, wham, all the way over on her back, virtually does a split S. This is in full landing configuration and takes about 900 feet of altitude to recover from. That's a test pilot on top of his game, expecting all this to happen. So with the stick pusher off, that's your Pilatus PC-12 stall characteristic in the landing configuration. Let's show you disengaged from inside the cockpit, climbing through what is that, 11,000 feet. You can see the airspeed up here dropping way down. I think he's got an AOA indication up here on the HSI. I'm not sure. He's still climbing a bit. Slower. He's feeding that right aileron into there. That's going to exacerbate the whole situation. Trying to keep the wings level, and wham, there she goes off to the left, off to the rodeo. And there she goes altitude-wise. Wham, 6,000 feet per minute down. There's 500 feet, 6, 7, 800 feet or so. And recover. That's quite a wild ride without the stick pusher engaged. Now let's see if we can get and here's what it looks like from outside the cockpit window with the stick pusher disengaged. Basically a split S. Half a snap roll and recover. Okay, stick pusher engaged. Let's back that up. Here we go. It shoves the nose down. See that? It starts porpoising the aircraft. And it prevents you from getting into that deep stall snap roll. Here it is from the cockpit view. Stick pusher engaged. Who's he at? 9 or 10,000 feet there? Maybe 11,000 feet. See the stick shaker? See his hands shaking? And bam, the stick pusher moved the stick right forward and broke the stall, or prevented from getting into the deep stall to begin with. Looking out the window with the stick pusher engaged. Shoves the nose right down. And you're right on the ragged edge of a stall there. Quite easy to get into a secondary stall. This can be overridden, but it's going to take about 60 pounds to overdo it. And that's easy to do. If you see the ground rushing up at you, your natural, unfortunate instinct is to snatch that stick back and just drive it into the ground by stalling it. So, a rather long story to a short ending. Engine failure resulting in stalling the aircraft in on short final. Lessons learned for all of us: land as soon as conditions permit versus landing as soon as practical. And Pete, as always, what do you want to do in order?
Aviate, navigate, communicate.
That's right. Aviate first. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. See you here. Thanks, Pete. Back to your studies. Homeschool. Don't fire your teacher, Pete.